everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Perspective Checks, where I sit down with friends and folks from the TTRPG community to talk about all the things we love and inspire us, or frustrate us, or just make us dive further into this wonderful hobby we all share. Today, I am joined by Nicole, aka Game Master Mom, a wonderful TTRPG content creator, actual play performer, game designer, and now children's book author. Nicole, thank you so much for coming on.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Really excited.
I'm very excited to talk to you. Everybody who listens to my podcast knows I can't help but inject, obviously, I think everyone does this, injects themselves into characters they play or things that they do, even their hobbies and whatnot. But I have a now 4-year-old son who I'm very excited to get into rolling them dice and not just throwing them from the bowl of his mom's enormous dice bowl, but starting to tell some stories together. So I'm very excited to talk to you today and hear about what you've been up to.
Yeah, oh, I love that. Four is a really good age to start, I think. I mean, really, honestly, after they get out of the like everything goes in my mouth phase is a good time to start. That's my thought.
That was when we were keeping the dice away for a long time, and then it was like we can trust them.
Yeah.
But then that trust immediately gets betrayed by, oh, that's way too many dice on the ground that we now have to pick up, kind of thing. But
yes,
some would say no such thing as too many dice. I'm not a dice goblin myself, but I married one, so
dice goblin by association.
That's right. So before we dive into our topic and talk about plenty of things about gaming with kids and your upcoming project, which is very exciting, I always ask people the same 3 questions to open these Perspective Checks interviews to get to know you, find out more about you, and hear about your origin story, if you will. So, ready to dive right in?
Yeah, let's do it.
All right. Our first question we always ask is, how long have you been playing RPGs or been in or around the hobby?
Yeah, I have like 2 different answers to this, so I'll just kind of explain it like that. I feel like I was a really like late adopter in life of the like D&D scene. I really resisted that for a long time. So I actually played Dungeons and Dragons for the first time like 3 years ago. So I'm pretty new to that. Yeah, right. And then prior to that, I was playing some other tabletop, like complicated rules games. Like I played a lot of Mansions of Madness, which is kind of like a Lovecraftian sort of game. And
it's almost like Cthulhu the board game. I own that one, and I was like, oh, wow, this is pretty dead on.
Yes, it's a great one. Highly recommend that one. If anybody out there hasn't played it, that one's really fun and like just the right amount of spooky. But yeah, kind of playing games like that, and then eventually got talked into being a player in a friend's Dungeons and Dragons campaign, and then got kind of obsessed with that and went from there and started DMing my own games for mostly kids.
That's awesome. Yeah, and it's funny. I remember my journey and starting to DM like right out the gate. It was kind of like how I got roped into it. Like I experienced it and then I went, oh, this is amazing. And then the 2 people who had run games for me very briefly moved away. So I had to start running games. And during lockdown, during the pandemic years, which is when a lot of people got into games, and a lot of people went to digital and were playing online. But I love that you were like, nope, we're doing this at home and we're going to play with the kids. That is so awesome. And I can't wait to hear about that. So what games have you been playing lately? Are you sticking with D&D mostly? Are you exploring other systems? What have you been playing?
Some D&D, a lot of like my homebrew system, which is basically like D&D light. It's like way simplified rules, but a very similar feel to, the kind of stuff that Wizards of the Coast puts out, that sort of fantasy realm. And you still get to roll dice a lot, which is important, but less math and just generally less things to keep up with because, I mean, I play with kids as young as like 3, so they're not going to be reading the player's handbook or filling out a full character sheet. Like it's not happening. So I play a lot of what I call my like homebrew system.
Yeah.
And then I also play some Hero Kids. I really like
Hmm.
Hero Kids, which is like I think it's D6 based, but
Yeah.
it's a really great kids TTRPG.
Yeah, I actually, listeners of this show will not be surprised to hear this. I'm not only a TTRPG hoarder, like that I have way, way, way too many RPG PDFs and games and stuff, but I am a compulsive organizer, which
Mhm.
you wouldn't believe looking behind me, my office. We're renovating. We switched sides of our office and built a big desk. But in my Google Drive, I have like folders that break down like by system, like alphabetically, like all this like craziness. And I have a whole folder of like groups for young players that I've kind of been
Mhm.
like, these games would work for young players. So like it's the games that I intend on introducing to my son to see if he gloms onto any of them in particular. And Hero Kids is definitely on there. D6
Yes.
based, which is always nice. You know, you don't have to count too high with D20s. They're looking at like a 15 going, what's this number?
Right.
Yeah. So there's a bunch of interesting ones that I think I'm excited to explore.
Mhm.
Yeah. And I feel like we'll get into, like you said, you've simplified a lot of mechanics in your homebrew system. So we'll get into how you break that down and make it more approachable for kids shortly.
Yeah.
And I guess that segues very well into the third opening question, which is, what are we talking about today?
What are we talking about today? Yeah. Well, hopefully, we're going to talk a lot about just playing with kids in general,
Hmm.
but I am going to do some shameless self promotion and talk about the way that I play and the game that I'm going to be putting out and the book that I'm putting out next month.
Yes. Yeah. No fear. Shameless self promotion. Welcome. Obviously, it's part of why I want to talk to you. It's such an exciting project. Like I said, now an author of a book, and that is what you're going to
Yeah.
be crowdfunding next month, right? Or well, when we're recording this next month, and I'll try and get
Yeah.
this out in a good amount of time to so people can take advantage of it. And um,
Yeah.
so,
May 2025. You have all of May, and then after that,
mhm.
I don't know, you're going to have to figure out where to get it somewhere else because Kickstarter's going to be closed.
Yes. So yeah, and that's super exciting. Congrats on writing a book, which is just an amazing endeavor.
Thank you.
Tell us about it. Is called Tales of Aetheria. Did I say it right?
Yes. Yeah, you did.
Okay.
You did. Yeah. So Tales of Etheria is the name of the book series that I'm doing. And then the game series is going to be called Adventures in Etheria. And Etheria is my homebrew fantasy world. So the book that's coming out in May is the first book in the series, and it's Tales of Etheria, and the subtitle is An Unexpected Quest. This book is basically an introduction to the world, some of the main characters in my world, and really just like families playing a tabletop role playing game together and like what that can look like and how much fun it can be and how creative it can be.
That's such an awesome idea to package it as a story set in a world that very gently onboards non TTRPG fanatic folks, which I'm too deep in it to not have that that viewpoint. But for the
Right.
folks whose kids might be expressing an interest in it, they can get this book, they can read it together, they can get excited about this world and the
Mhm.
idea of playing these story games, which is so smart. And then you're going to be putting out the game that accompanies it so they
Mhm.
can pick that up and have this streamlined set of rules to jump right in, start telling their own stories. So smart.
That's the dream. That's
Yeah.
the whole hope that I have is that
Yeah.
that's what will happen. And really like the main I've always wanted to write a book. I've always been writing since I was very young, but I've never published anything before. But the reason why I really like got serious about making this book is because I couldn't find anything like it for my own kids. I really wanted my kids to have some kind of book that was like an intro to like D&D type stuff, and there's a few that are really cute. Like there's a few little Golding books that
Hmm.
are Dungeons and Dragons. There's like, ABCs and one, two,
Yeah.
threes
Yeah.
of D&D, which I'm sure everyone has seen or like been gifted for Christmas because people know you're a nerd or
Yep.
something like that.
Oh, yeah.
Like, those are good, but I don't feel like they have the same kind of like fantasy world immersion that I was
Mm-hmm.
wanting. So
Yeah.
I was just like, oh, I'll write my own.
Well, yeah, and it's true, right? Not only that, they might tell you some of the words that you'd be exposed to if you were to like say, "Oh, my kid likes this kind of fantasy thing. Like, let me pick up D&D." And then parents go, "Wait a minute, it's $350 books, and you know what I mean? Like, and then what are all
Right.
these crazy rules that my kids are never going to follow?" And not to, I'm a little bit of a D&D basher.
That's okay.
Yeah, only because of I appreciate what it is in the hobby, but I think that it is too big of a thing, that it does this thing, which I think very much fits for what we're talking about here, which is it's overwhelming. It sets this
Mhm.
expectation of you need to do a lot of work to understand how to do these games. And that is not
Yeah.
true. Like it's really not. There's a lot of games that are really simple and better intros to the hobby. But
Mhm.
unfortunately, the societal context of TTRPGs is D&D. And
It
so
is.
by creating your own game and story and world to introduce these familiar things in a more kid-friendly way, both in rules and in tone and in setting and all that, is just it's really admirable, and I'm very excited. Shameless self telling you that you got a backer in me, because it's the perfect kind of thing for introing my kid to games. I'm so excited. So
Yeah, I think it's gonna be great. I mean, I think like in my mind, what I picture is like, parents that start reading to their kids really early, right? Like even before they're like 1 year old, they read the bedtime story to calm down at night. Like they can read this book that's like beautifully illustrated, so it will engage even super young children. And then it's like that exposure to the nerddom happens super early.
yeah.
Like you just get them in the door right away.
Right. Yeah, exactly. Instead of all the usual, kid things that, kids might be, in a, in a wildly, who knows, future, being like, no, like the touchstones are these wonderful fantasy worlds. What are we talking about?
Right?
That's wonderful. So I have
Yeah.
to ask, you said this is your homebrew world. Is this
Yeah.
mostly you doing the world building, or is this reflected of games you've played with your kids and some of their ideas have contributed to this?
It's definitely a collaboration. I think I come up with the basic framework of it, but then kids are so creative. They come up with like the craziest stuff. If you just like let them start going, they come up with really cool stories. So I've definitely integrated some mechanics that they made up and some characters that they made up, and the world. Once you get to know the world a little better, you'll see that there's just pockets of silliness
Yeah,
kind of everywhere. And
as you
and
do.
most of those
Yeah.
are from the kids I play with.
I'm a huge proponent of, again, this is something that I learned and I will never turn around and look back about with once I got out of the forever DM for D&D thing, which was like the idea of a GM screen and like I know everything about the world and like you're only
Mhm.
getting little drips of information and you have to learn about it. As soon as I played a game where it was like get rid of that screen and like everyone can just have a chance to be like insert something into the story, like into the narrative. You
Yeah.
have control, authorial control. And the idea of giving that to kids is so exciting, but also like almost a little more scary than doing it with adults. Because at least with adults, you might be like, I am expecting you to be reasonable and follow established rules of, like keep it consistent. But a kid might just be like, out of left field, anything is anything is possible.
Anything. Yeah.
But that
Mhm.
could be awesome. That could be so
It is
fun.
awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is. And like obviously you can play however you want to play, but I like to play in a way that really encourages that.
Mhm.
And if they come up with some kind of off the wall idea that I never would have come up with that's not really reasonable, I usually try to find a way to make it work.
Mhm. Yeah.
I very rarely am like, no, that's impossible.
Hard no, yeah.
Right.
It's like maybe just right now.
Yeah. Maybe
Yeah.
you can do that just this one time, or
Yeah.
like maybe you can do that, but you're going to have to roll a really good perception check
Yeah.
first. Like, I'm going to make you roll for that crazy thing that you said you wanted to do,
Yep.
and we'll see if you get to do it or not. We'll see if
Oh,
you
yeah.
succeed.
Work towards this crazy thing. Yeah. Like baby
Yeah.
steps towards it.
Yeah.
So quick question. What age did you introduce your kids to TTRPGs?
Um, my daughter was 3 when she
Hmm.
started playing a player character. She's 5 now. My son is 2 and he has not done a player character yet, although he has been my assistant since he was like a newborn.
Wonderful.
So
That's
he
excellent.
he he's been like sitting in on games forever. And he's actually very good at rolling the dice for the bad guys. He always does the rolls for the NPCs and the
Co-DM.
bad guys.
That's awesome. That's wonderful. Yeah, just get them rolling. Just to even said you could just be like, out of my hands. Like, listen, this is
Right?
the hand
I
of
mean,
fate. This is what the dice say.
yeah,
That's
yeah,
awesome.
yeah. They love it.
So I know this is a big part of your social media, which I will link in the description of this podcast because you have wonderful social media accounts where you give a lot of advice and share a lot of tips and things like that about playing with kids. So I don't want you to just rehash a lot of that. Like people can go learn a lot of that, but a quick version of it. How do you keep the game focused for kids? Because obviously attention spans are shorter and
Yes.
no you're not going to get a 5-year-old to sit at a table for 2 hours playing a game. What do
No.
what are some of the things that you've learned work to keep them focused?
Snacks.
Yeah.
Snacks are really great, especially if the snacks can be integrated into the game. Like if there's a mechanic where something happens, like maybe you get like a jelly bean or something for that, or a little goldfish cracker.
Mm-hmm.
The food just keeps them going. I don't know what it is.
I've seen people who use like gummy bears or maybe goldfish or something like that as the minis, which is very funny.
Yes,
And then it's like, oh,
yes,
you've defeated it. You can snack on this snack now. But I also love the
yes.
idea of like advantage or, in a game that has some kind of meta currency, doing it as snacks.
Hmm.
I'm going to use this now and just eat my snack.
Yes, yeah, yeah. Most of my like potions or special effects or things like that are edible, or
Hmm.
you can like trade them in for something that's actually edible.
Oh, that's true. Like, and actually, my wife brought this up. I meant to shout out my wife because she's very excited for the same reasons. We're very excited to get our kid into nerdy RPG fun. But she asked, like, she loves when I was making a lot of props and like terrain and stuff like that. Like, that's definitely something that probably must help engage the kids, right? Is when you can pull out these little props and things like to immerse them more, right? Like, make it feel more
Yes.
real.
Yeah, they love that. The groups of kids that I play with don't really get super excited about terrain. Like I
Yeah.
really like making like small furniture and stuff like that. I think that's super cute. They
Yeah.
don't care.
Yeah.
But like if there's a chest in the room that they can open, like they want there to actually be a chest. Or,
Oh,
if
yeah.
there's a message in a bottle, like they like to have like an actual bottle that they can pull an actual paper out of. So I would say I don't do a lot of terrain, but I do a lot of props
Yeah.
because the kids really seem to like the props, and of course minis, monster minis, player
Hmm.
character minis, NPC minis, animal companion minis, any minis they love.
Yeah. There's a game that is currently kickstarting. I don't know if it's going to fund, but I've interviewed the creator of it on this show before, and he made a game called Infinibrix that uses Legos. You make your own Lego
Ooh.
characters, and then kids can play with any of their toys. And
Oh,
basically,
that's so smart.
yeah, and then you basically make your game like the dining room table is like where you are, and
Yeah.
you have your little. It sounds very great. He's reconfiguring everything like that to make it work. But yeah, the idea of just giving a kid a mini to latch onto and be like, this is my character, right? Like, how cool is that?
Yeah.
So I can see that making all the sense in the world.
Yeah, they love that. And I'm glad you mentioned the toys thing because really like unless you're a super like minimalist parent, which if you are, I applaud you, good job.
Yeah,
But
not here.
unless you work really, really hard at minimalism of stuff, your house is full of like small toys and things that can work great at a gaming table. Like pretty much anything that comes in a birthday party favor bag, great. Lego minifigs, great.
Yep. Yeah.
Blocks in general, great. Like
Yeah.
there's just stuff all around your house that if you get a little creative, you can just bring that right in.
That's very good advice. And I love that too, right? Just think outside the box, right? Because kids, I think that one thing adults struggle to do, especially adults getting back into something like tabletop role playing games, or it's telling a story and we're like playing pretend, right? Like that is
Yeah.
honestly a skill that gets really left behind. Like it is not encouraged in adolescence to adulthood, young adulthood. Like that's the kind of thing. It's like, okay, now you have to like leave these childish things behind, you know? And
Yeah.
yet it's such a valuable skill to have because it allows you to get creative and think outside the box for problem solving. And even just the simple thing of being like, oh, yeah, we have Legos. Oh, I have this little thing over here that would make this really
Right.
fun little set piece, you know, or whatever. That's really great advice too. And kids
Mhm.
are going to appreciate that, right? Like, because that's how their
Yeah.
minds are thinking. It's like anything is a toy if you play with it, right?
Yeah, exactly. And there, you don't have to worry about things like, oh, is it to scale or is that like accurate to the period? Kids don't care about any of that. You just
Yeah,
put it out there and it's fun.
right, right. Because they're going to come up with something ridiculous anyway. Then like they don't have any context for medieval,
Yeah.
realism. Which if you're going for with your table, probably maybe don't anyway.
Yeah. Yeah. More power to you, but like that sounds hard.
Yeah. So those are really fun ideas for just setting the scene for like engagement at the table, keeping them entertained, right? Like not getting too distracted because there's things for them to play with and touch, tactile, right?
Yeah.
Then when it comes to the actual game, like the rolling of the dice, do you obviously you streamline a lot of rules, starting
Yeah.
with D&D 5e rule set, and you've tweaked it to be more kid friendly. Do you worry about math or like integrating like learning opportunities into your games, or is it more just kind of, is that just a nice side effect maybe? I don't know.
I definitely keep the math.
Yeah.
I don't like take it out, but I would say I don't rely on it as heavily
Hmm.
as traditional D&D
Sure.
5e would.
Yeah.
But usually it's just like addition, right? Or
Hmm.
like, okay, roll and tell me what number landed up, right? And then like
Yeah.
I'll tell you if it did good or not or whatever.
Yeah.
So I keep it in there, but there's a lot less like stats and skill checks and
Mm.
like the attacks and everything are so much simpler that it's not coming up like multiple times per turn like it does when you play like the full adult version of
Yeah.
D&D.
That's true. Yeah. I mean, one, if you're going into a game knowing you're playing with kids, the GM or, whoever's going to be running the game should probably have all those numbers, on their
Yeah.
side where they just go roll the big one and let me know what number comes up, which is good enough most of the time. And then you could
Yeah.
maybe, when they're 5, ask, do you know what that number +2 is? You know what I mean? Like,
Mm-hmm.
and just work towards those little things.
Yeah.
But yeah, I was thinking about it. I think there's a RPG called Quest. Is that what it's called? Quest RPG. And
That
it's
sounds
a,
familiar.
yeah, it's a D20 based fantasy system. But I think what they do is they basically just have like ranges
Uh-huh.
of how the success works, right? So like a natural 1 is like, oh, that's bad. Like, that's bad. Natural 20 is like, yay, you did. You know what I mean? Like everybody gets excited for a nat 20.
Yes.
But then it's like, if you rolled between 16 and 19, then like, it's like, you did really good, and like, and
Mm-hmm.
then 11 to 15, and then 6 to 10 or whatever. So like, it kind of like puts these bands that make it a little
Yeah.
more like immediately like, oh, nice,
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So there's definitely ways to keep the fun dice rolling in there, but simplify the rules. Yeah. I didn't even think about something like a long skills list. Do
Yeah.
you pare that down a lot? Do you?
Yeah, I pare it down a lot. I kept the original six, the
Yep.
like strength, constitution, whatever those
Yep.
are. But the ability scores, I narrowed it down to, I think, six more. I condensed a few of them and just took
Mhm.
out some that I never use.
Yeah.
So,
Right. What kid is rolling investigation when you can just roll that into a perception or history? It's
right.
like
Right, I know. It's like, okay, well, what used to be in big D&D, it's like arcana and history and like a bunch of
nature
stuff.
and
I'm like,
yeah.
we're just gonna call that lore. Do you know
Yeah,
your lore?
perfect. Right.
Okay, great.
Nature, arcana, right?
Yeah,
Yeah, exactly.
like all of it is just that now.
Yeah. What do you know? Right,
Yeah,
exactly.
yeah.
And then from a content like story perspective, obviously you have your homebrew world, so you have a
Yeah.
lot of pre-built in kind of setting details and plots and things like that that you can pull in. But do
Mhm.
you consciously with kids try and create scenarios or like adventures that hit certain themes or like lessons or certain I'm just thinking about it like I've been trying to design a few games, one of which being a game for my kid because I was like, well, if I can't find one, I'm going to make one, like you said with your book.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I also want, the stories that they tell to have like learning opportunities. Do you do a lot of work on that front?
I don't do a lot of work on that up front, but it is definitely something I'm tracking as we go along that I kind of
Mhm.
look for opportunities to do. Honestly, the main ones that I prep for that tend to come up a lot are teamwork, like the
Mhm.
value of everybody working together. I'll
Yes.
intentionally make things where like one person can't do it alone. They actually have to work together to make it work because they have different, skills,
Yeah.
or it just requires more than two hands or something like that. And then the other one is like dealing with failure, right? Because the failure aspect is built in. If you're rolling dice, sometimes you're going to fail.
Mhm.
That's the chance piece that makes it fun. So, a lot of good conversations around like, okay, man, you're really disappointed. Like, you really wanted to do that, but you rolled bad and now
Mm.
it didn't work. So, I think those are the two main, like, big kind of like learning lessons that I end up talking about in my games, but I'm always looking for opportunities for others too, like opportunities for them to like show kindness to like the big
Yeah.
bad guy, and then maybe they don't have to fight because they decided to be nice instead, or things like
Yeah,
that.
yeah. I love that too. Obviously failure in games at all. If you talk to a lot of adults or a lot of adults who like more narrative games, right? Like for me, I even did an episode about this with another podcaster, but like I think failure is more interesting,
Mm-hmm.
but that's because I'm used to stories and I know that failure isn't reflective of like me as a person, you know what I mean, or my character as a person. It's an opportunity to learn something new, or like it just makes the story more interesting, right? But for
Yeah.
kids, they need to learn that kind of thing. So that's really a good point. And if you can flavor failure in the form of like, wow, like it's not an utter like everyone's disappointed in you, like it's more just like
Right.
it's like, oh, okay, like you slipped up, you know what I mean. I think
Yeah.
there was I forget who said this, but I heard a great piece of advice, which especially with kids when you're playing games is like never make the failure their fault,
Mm-hmm.
right? Like make it something that happened in the environment or like how things have shifted, that what they intended didn't happen, but it's not because they're inept, right? Like it's funny
Right.
with adults sometimes to be like, oh, you rolled a nat one? Like, haha, like you slip and fall and like hit your friend. But like to do that to a kid, they go, no, I don't. No, I didn't. You know what I mean? Like you don't want to like make them
Mm-hmm.
feel like they just, ate it, like,
Right.
yeah.
Right. Like, oh man, that big gust of wind just really knocks you
Right.
over. Darn it.
Yeah, exactly. Right. It's something else happened that unfortunately interfered. Right. It's not your
Yeah.
ineptitude.
Yeah. I like that. And that kind of cuts down on the kids kind of picking on each other, right?
Yeah.
Or like kind of, poking fun at each other and being like, haha, you missed, 'cause Kids will do that. I don't know why. They love doing that.
Yeah, they test like the how much can I, how much poking and teasing can you take kind of thing, or how much can I get away with?
Yeah.
But also it kind of presents an opportunity for teamwork, right? Like you can
Mm-hmm.
frame it as like, oh, like your friend is trying to do this thing, but clearly they need help. Like,
They need
are you going to
help.
step
Yeah.
up and be a good friend right now and help them do the thing they need to do?
Right.
And I heard you say a word that I actually wrote down. And this wasn't in the little prompts I sent you ahead of time because I thought of it later. But you said bad guy. Do you?
I did.
Yeah. As a father of a 4-year-old right now, 4-year-old boy,
Yes.
we are constantly dealing with, oh, like I'm going to boom that bad guy is like what my son
Mm-hmm.
says. And I'm always like, no, we don't boom anybody, but like, we're not, what I mean? Like that is not a solution ever,
Right.
So do you use terms like bad guys or, couch conflict through combat as a solution and things like that? Or is there like conversations about, understand this is a fake thing we're doing, in the real world we
Mm-hmm.
would never go about it this way? How do you approach that?
Yeah. So I feel like I approach it kind of similar to like, think like animated Disney movies, right?
Oh
Your
yeah.
your Frozen, your Toy Story, your stuff like that. The bad guys aren't really that bad. Usually they're just kind of misunderstood.
Mm-hmm.
And the violence isn't that violent, right? And I always have, and this is optional, but I always have in my games a way to get through any situation without violence. So
I love that.
yeah, it's not that they have to, like some of them will choose to fight and I will let them fight. That's
Mm.
fine. But there's always an option to not if they don't want to. And usually that's the more interesting narrative option, like you find out that maybe that werewolf was just really grumpy because he put salt in his porridge instead of sugar this morning. And
Oh
like,
yeah, it's a bad
you
day.
know, yeah. So I always put opportunities in there for them to not just be like murder hobos, but
Yeah.
ultimately I usually let them choose.
Yeah, and again, like you said, like if you take it from a kids media sort of angle, where like even the fight isn't, we're not talking about ending characters here, like we are talking about like
Mm-hmm.
subduing, or we're talking about like, if it's Toy Story-esque, right? Like how much damage can a toy do? You know what I mean? Like you
Right.
can shoot a Nerf gun at them, but even then it's like
Mm-hmm.
oh, that's come up lately with my son, where it's just like, shoot, like I want to shoot my Nerf gun, and I'm like, oh, I wish your cousin never showed you Nerf guns. You know what I mean? Like you're 4 years, oh.
I know.
But again, like if they know the limit of the actual damage they can do and the damage that damage does.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and there's a lot of like I think good workarounds to even like bad guy death.
Yeah.
No one ever has to die. People can get
Right.
scared off.
Mm-hmm.
People can get put to sleep. They just
Yeah.
knock out and take a little nap. Now
Yeah.
they're not a threat. Like it doesn't have to be death, and
Mm-hmm.
oftentimes it's not. I don't know that I've ever actually declared someone dead in any of my games.
Right. Yeah, I wouldn't imagine it's the more, again, much like we talked about how failure is actually sometimes the more fun option narratively. I think death is the less interesting consequence most of
Yeah.
the time, right? Like, because then you're cutting short a potential story, right? You can always learn more about a character or their motivations or anything like that. So keeping it on the table as an evolving thing is probably
Yeah.
more interesting, right?
It certainly can be a lot more interesting.
Yeah, and again, in kids media, a lot of times you'll get the villain from the first series, the first season of a show is all of a sudden an ally in season 2 because of how they ended season 1, right? And now they have a new
Right.
problem. And that's
Right.
just more fun because now you have a new toy to play with. Yeah.
Yeah.
We're going to jump back a little bit real quick topically,
Okay.
because I meant to ask this before. You said you've played a little Hero Kids in addition to
Yes.
D&D, and obviously your homebrew system is a much simplified fantasy game. So this plays into like lessons you've probably learned, and like you've said, like how you've streamlined your rule system. Do you feel like playing with kids when they throw out those wild ideas that maybe are awesome and really fun and you do want to use, do you find that making the system more flexible makes it easier to roll with those kinds of things? Or do you like sometimes being able to lean on something and be like, sorry, there's a rule, that we have to follow, and having that robust rule to fall back on? I don't even know if there's a question there, but like, how did
Yeah.
you calibrate, what to cut, what to keep, etc.?
Yeah, I think my general rule with that is like I like it to be flexible but fair. So I'm happy for it to go outside of kind of a hard rule structure so that there's more room for creativity and silliness and fun. But I don't want to have that turn into, one person getting to do all these things that somebody else can't do, right? So
Mm,
I usually that's kind of like how I set the balance is I kind of keep track with myself of like, okay, well, let's still make sure it's fair, right? Like if this character decided that they were going to sprout wings and fly, then like
hmm.
when this other character says that they're going to sprout gills and swim, I'm going to let them do that too, So
Sure.
like,
Yeah.
having some kind of guidelines, but also still, I don't know, embracing that kind of like rule of cool way of playing, I guess.
Yeah, and again, that's why I'm thinking to myself, it must be it must be more of a relief to be able to kind of just lean back and be like, yes, like of course, because we can bend the rules a little bit. Obviously, with kids, you're never going to be like, oh no, like according to this rule on this page. But at the
Mhm.
same time, like you said, that's kind of why I asked that, is like sometimes you might need to lean back and be like, we can't do that because like that's too much, right? Like
Right.
if this was a spectrum of all the way one side is just we're just playing pretend with no rules at all, then
Right.
you run into the kid who's like, I have everyone's powers, right? And it's like, okay, no,
Yes.
no, you don't. But if you go
Yeah.
the full other way, all of a sudden kids aren't going to want to play because they can't keep up with learning all these rules, and then it stifles their creativity, which is maybe the best part of playing with kids, I would imagine.
Yes. It definitely is. And, I think it's like kids do this a lot. I don't know if it's just the ones I play with, probably not. But kids will definitely test the limits of the rules and see what they can get away with. So I think it's important to at least kind of go in with a mindset of what you're going to allow and what you're not.
Hmm.
I tend to go pretty flexible, but I will always have at least one kid that's like, okay, the spider goes out to bite you, and then I roll for the spider, and I'm like, oh, and he bites you, and you take 1 point of health damage. And then the kid's like, no, he doesn't. He doesn't bite
Nuh-uh.
me. I don't take damage. No, I don't. Like
Nuh-uh.
that always happens
That's
every
so
game. There's at least one kid that wants to do that, and that's one of those situations where I have to be like, you know what? It's part of what makes the game fun is that
yeah.
we have some rules about how it works, and how it works is he rolled better than you, so he bit you, and now you have one less health point.
Yeah. And like,
you
and
know
it's, and you have to look at the kid and be like, look at your sheet. Like, you have 5 hit points. You're losing 1.
You're
Like
gonna be
you're
fine.
okay. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But,
Yeah.
but no one's ever gonna be perfect all the time. Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Again, it's kind of fun how the things I'm just thinking of, and obviously I've tried to prepare myself for this, but the things that you kind of take for granted as an adult, where you just accept these as like, this is just how you play the game, and then communicating that to kids in a way that doesn't, because yeah, kids will just say no.
Yeah.
No, I don't. You're
They
like,
will.
there's no explaining the social contract to kids, right? There's no like, look, we're all playing in this shared thing. You can say things like that, but it's actually really important how you communicate those things to kids so they understand the shared story, the shared
Mhm.
rules by which we're all playing. We're all doing
It
this the same way.
is. It is. And honestly, like, it is a challenge, but like, what a great skill for them to be practicing while they're playing. Like,
Hmm.
I feel like I mean, especially my kids that have to play all the time because they live with me. Like, I feel like they need to put that on their resume. Like when they apply for their first job, be like, well, I've been playing Dungeons and Dragons with my mom since I was 4 years old. So I know the value of teamwork. And, like, I just feel like they're getting so much out of it.
Yeah, and that's not even. I completely agree. I actually have a tangent story that I'll tell just because I think it's funny. But also, a lot of these skills, and not only like for the GM, for the parent who's learning how to do this. I mean, like we often there's a recurring joke in the TTRPG community of like being the GM is like wrangling cats. You know what I mean? Like, and it's true. But at the same time, if you can find those behaviors, those kind of structures that help rein in a story, right? And make it so that way the world feels big enough that players can feel like they can do anything, but the rules are established enough that they know where the bounds are, is a really tight rope to walk. And
Yeah.
those skills translate to, not to get all like white collar, but like, there's management in that, right? Like there
There
is
is. Yeah, those
communication
are
skills in that.
skills.
Yeah.
People skills, soft skills or whatever they call them now.
Yeah. This is my tangential story. And everyone listening to this podcast, if they're regulars, know this, but I started running a lunch game at my work. We get a half-hour lunch, but then we get 15 minutes, 2 15-minute breaks. And me and this group started doing just a full 45 minutes to maybe an hour. We stretch it. And it started with me and 3 players that just saw me prepping one day. And they were like, can you run a game for us? And I was like, sure. And I'm running like generic fantasy Powered by the Apocalypse. So I couldn't run D&D because we'd get nowhere in a lunch session. Right. So it's just 2d6 plus stat. And we're doing very simplified rules. My table has ballooned to 10 players and me meeting twice a week at lunch. And we take over the lunchroom and people are like, what are these kids doing? Like, what is going on over here? And
that's amazing.
And recently we had a like department day where basically it was like, come see what all of the different offices in our department do. And like they can, like everyone has like these little boards about like, here's what our program does. And like, here's what we do like day in, day out. And they had a little stand at the entrance to this like fair day thing for all of the offices. And it was like, here are some of like the like extracurricular like clubs and things that people do. And there's like people who play volleyball at lunch and there's people who do, and front and center, like a big poster. I don't know who found this or who put this out there. It said tabletop role-playing game lunches. And then it said, contact me. And I was like, who, what? No. And all of my players were like, did you see this? Did you see? And like, and then
did you know they were advertising your services?
Like, yeah, exactly. Like, am I going to have a whole lot more people showing up to lunch games now? But then somebody joked, actually it was Raso, who we'll talk about in a minute. And again, regular listeners will know. He was like, I'm pretty sure that means you can put that on your resume now. And I was like, I think I can. I don't know if I will, but I definitely can. But the
people who get it would appreciate it. Other people would be like, what?
I wasn't even going to go to it. And then one of my players emailed me and was like, you got to get up here right now. And I was like, oh no, what happened? Like, oh no. And then I saw it and I was like, oh, okay. All right, sure.
Oh,
but you're right. And I think that what better way to start, both from a GM perspective and from a player perspective, getting kids comfortable with this shared play space, shared rules, teamwork, right? Like understanding it's one thing for kids to play games and learn, like, kids play sports. They're not going to win every game of their baseball season, right? They're not going to win every level they play in a video game. Kids experience losses, right? And failures, but doing it in this kind of space, right? Where they can see that it's not just a loss in the win-loss column of your T-ball league. It's, it was just a stumble and you kept going. You just kept, and like it is very good skills.
It is. And it's like resiliency building, which is so important for humans.
Yeah. For being a human is very true.
Right?
Yeah. There's a lot that, and we can call it TTRPGs can do to help you contextualize life a lot better, but also just that creative make-believe, that experiencing other perspectives and points of view. Now, I hadn't thought about this. How wild are your kids' characters? Like when you play games with kids, like do they tend to make self-inserts because they're still learning who they are as kids? Or you ever see kids pull out like, where did you come up with this concept kind of things?
Sometimes, yes. Not very often. Most often, I see kids either basing their character on themselves, as most of us do when we create our first character,
Mm-hmm.
or basing their character on like their favorite character from something else. So,
Oh
like
yeah.
Bluey or Elsa or something like that, you know. But yeah, every once in a while, they'll just come up with something off the wall that's very wild. And I'm like, okay, that's interesting. And honestly, like I kind of made the hard decision close to the beginning of doing something different than what a lot of the other kids tabletop role playing games do, which is like I only offer them a pretty like small variety of race and class
Mm-hmm.
options.
Yeah.
I like it and I hate it, right? I like it because it gets the game going quicker, which is ultimately why I chose to do it that way. It just makes it more simple.
Mm-hmm.
But I kind of hate that it like prevents them from being, you know, like a fire breathing dragon, you know,
Sure.
like
Yeah.
rogue or something. You know, like I
Right.
feel like they could probably come up with better characters if I just like let them have free reign.
Mm-hmm.
But, you know, just to keep it more simple, I usually give them, you know, like maybe 6 or 7 race choices and then maybe like 5 or 6 class choices. And like, that's your character.
Yeah. But that also makes sense. I mean, you're also providing a setting, right? So like
Yeah.
not letting them get too out of bounds right from the get-go makes all the sense in the world. So, you know, if they're playing within the bounds of the setting, it makes sense. And also, like you said, it does. Maybe there's the kid who wants to come in and be like, well, why can't I be this like mole person? And you could be like,
Right.
because I didn't make mole people. Like, I don't, you know, but you
Yeah.
know, as other GMs who might be running this game get comfortable with it, they might say like, oh, well, we'll just make you a dwarf, but we'll call you a mole person. That's fine. You know what I mean? Like whatever,
Right.
that's fine.
Right.
Yeah. So there's ways to do that. And speaking of dwarves and first characters, I gotta get this in, and I gotta shout out our mutual friend at this point, but Raso, one of my home group players. People have heard him on this podcast. He's played in multiple games at this point on this podcast, and his character, his very first D&D character who he ever played, my wife and him used to play Destiny online together. They never met in person ever.
Cute.
And she's talking to him online one night while they're playing Destiny, and they're like, oh, we're going to do a raid or whatever in a few days. And she's like, oh, I can't make it. We're playing D&D at my boyfriend's house, that, you know, then girlfriend, now wife. And he's like, oh, I've always wanted to do that. And my wife, without even asking me, just goes, oh, come over, come play. Just come over and we'll get you right in. And I'm like, who is this person you just invited to like,
come on over, stranger.
sure. And then he comes over, makes a character, and we've never looked back. He's been in the home group ever since. Sorry, I took a long road to get here, but his first character ever was a dwarf named Einar, and Einar is going to be in your book, right?
He's in the book. Yes.
It's so awesome. That is wild to me. Oh, I love that. Yeah, you had a little what was it, like a contest or like just like a people could submit their OCs, right?
Yeah, it was a long time ago. It was like August of 2024. I had just started writing the book and I wanted to incorporate some of other people's characters into it just to give it a little more flavor. And so I put an ask out on Instagram of like, hey, if anybody wants to submit their character to me to be considered for the book, like shoot me something over. Well, I got over 100 submissions.
That's awesome. Yeah,
Which is
people
crazy.
love their OCs. Yeah, right. But that's awesome, right? Yeah.
Yeah. And so now I have, I think I have about 30 featured characters that are in the book, other people's characters. And
yeah, and they're just going to be like
so
NPCs in and around the world. Oh, that's so great.
Yeah.
Yeah, in our Storm King's Thunder game that Einar was made for, I think he invented golf
Oh, so there you
Yeah,
go.
as a, it was a dwarven warhammer thing that he just started. He was like, I don't have a ranged weapon. He's like, can I turn my warhammer sideways and like hit a rock? I was like, yes. And I'm pretty sure you just invented golf. And he was
Yes,
like,
he did.
this is the this is the best day of my life.
That's amazing.
So I'm just, yeah, that's such a funny connection. Raso and I are from, but both no longer live in the smallest state in the country of Rhode Island. And there is a joke that there's the usual like 6 degrees of separation, but in Rhode Island it's one. Like there's no way
Everybody knows everybody in Rhode
there's
Island.
no way you don't know somebody that knows somebody else that's a stranger to you that you just met. And when you expand that to TTRPGs on the internet, look, it's it's a smaller web than people think.
It truly is. It
Yeah.
truly is.
So
Yeah.
So speaking of Einar, speaking of your book, we have not talked much about the actual book, so I think this is a
Yeah.
good opportunity to just kind of let you gush about Tales of Aetheria. Why don't you share whatever you feel comfortable sharing and hype it up.
Yeah, sure. I love this book. I mean, it really, where do I even start? So it's basically a story within a story, right? So the outer story is this family. The kids are like having a bad day. It's raining outside. They're like, bleh. And the mom pulls out this old, like, dusty chest of all her, like, old TTRPG stuff and starts setting it up on the table. And then is like, come on, like, y'all want to come see what this is all about and try it? And then they get engaged in that. And then the inner story, which is actually most of the book, is them playing their characters in the game. And the two main characters that the kids play are based on my daughter's character and a character that I kind of made up for my son because he doesn't play yet, right?
Yeah.
But so my daughter's character is a high elf wizard, and my son's character is a human fighter. Very simple, basic.
What a combo.
Right? And they go on an unexpected quest, as the title would suggest,
I love
during
it.
this game that their mom is GMing for them at their kitchen table.
It's so relatable. It's so inviting, right? It's familiar, but you're going to learn about a new place. You're going to learn about a new hobby, right? People who are buying this and reading it to their kids who maybe have never run a game, maybe are passing familiar, especially in this day and age with your Stranger Things, with your Critical Roles and stuff like that. It's on the periphery of mainstream media. So yeah, it's so exciting. I love the concept. And this is the plan is you're going to have multiple of these stories, right? That's going to be a series. And then the game coincides with it. So that eventually, not only can you read this story, you can dive right in and start playing your own games. Oh, very, very clever. I must applaud you for the idea. It's so well done.
Thank you. Yeah, I really like it. I wanted to make something that, like, I would enjoy as a parent, a nerd parent. So that was my vision the whole time, was like, make something that you would like, that you would want to buy to play with your kids.
It's how the best things are born, right? It's just like, I see there's a gap here, or like, I think I could do something that would work here. And I can't wait. I cannot wait to see it. I'm very excited.
So the book, I think, is this really lovely balance as far as like who it would appeal to. My illustrator, he goes by the Drawing Bard, just did a bang up job, and it is so beautiful. The illustrations are so pretty that I think it could draw in people that don't even care about tabletop role playing games or fantasy, because it's just so engaging and pretty the way that he draws. It's so lovely. So I feel like it can reach like the
casual,
not so nerd crowd, maybe is what we'll call them. I say that in the nicest way. But if you're like a real like D&D TTRPG nerd enthusiast, you will see just tons of Easter eggs for you in the book that you will recognize as like, nerddom things. And I think a few of them are like few of them are really pretty deep. So I'm going to see how it goes once the book is actually in people's hands. But I think I'll probably give a few more little hints as people have it to like, oh, did you notice this on that page? What do you think that means? Because we did hide a bunch of little things in there that I'm super excited about, especially for like the ultra nerds like us.
Yeah, yeah. You're gonna have to have a little secret list that you keep, and it's just like waiting for somebody to mention this thing here.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm excited. I will hunt for those Easter eggs, and here's your heads up, everyone. Go into it. Brush up on your nerd lore.
Mm-hmm.
That's awesome.
And like some of them will be really obvious, right? Like there's a gelatinous cube in the book.
Sure. Yeah.
If you've played Dungeons and Dragons or seen any of the stuff, you know what a gelatinous cube is, right?
Yeah.
So like there's stuff like that, right?
You know what's funny though? It's like, yeah, it's a staple. It's a classic D&D monster, right? But and like again, channel that. Remember when you first started? You know that naivete, that awe and wonder that you experienced the first time you learned what an owlbear was. You know what I mean? Like when you go
Yeah.
like, what is this thing? And I need it. I want it now. You know. So like for those parents who are gonna buy it because maybe they're interested, maybe they're buying it, maybe they're being gifted it because it's like, hey, like this is something that I think would be fun for you to do with your kid. The first time they see something like a gelatinous cube, it's just gonna sparks are gonna go off in their brain and be like, what is this thing and what am I looking at? It's so fun. And I will also say, the art I've seen of the book, the little snippets you've posted, oh my goodness, what flavorful, like it's the cartoonishness of it. It fits so perfectly, right? It's
Mm-hmm.
so on theme. It feels so mother telling her kids stories, kind of like cartoony, but like it also it's colorful, it's vibrant. Sorry, I just I was drawn in immediately. Art obviously helps sell
Yeah.
things like this, and like when you can marry it so well with the concept of a thing. But
Yeah, for sure. For sure. I'll definitely be sharing more and more little peeks at it over the next few months. And I actually do want to add one more thing that I just
yeah,
thought of.
keep talking.
The book is also going to come in an animated form. It's like a kind of like short film form
Whoa.
that my illustrator and I made together. So I can never remember the name of the type of animation he does, but it's an animation style that
Okay.
will use a lot of the same illustrations from the book, but it moves through as me and a few voice actors read the story over it. So it's
Oh, that's
about
so
probably like
cool.
a 7 or 8 minute film that is also going to be like an add-on to the Kickstarter.
Oh, that's so fun. Cause then yeah, exactly. You can put it on and it's engaging in a different way, right? It's
Yeah,
just kind of like sit there and enjoy the visuals of it and hear the story. I
yeah,
love that. That's very cool. And wow, jealous because art is just something that I wish I was really good at. And when I see people
same.
who knock it out of the park on things like that, it's always so exciting.
Yeah, that was definitely my illustrator's idea. He was like, I actually really like doing animations. Do you want me to do an animation of the book too? And I was like, yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're doing that.
Didn't know that was an option. Yes, please. Yeah.
Right. Like I wasn't thinking that, but yeah, we should totally do that too.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
That's great. Yeah, I can't wait to see all of the things. I can't wait to show my son. I can't wait to get him involved in all this stuff. And
Yeah. Bring him into the nerddom.
I don't think he will have an option. Obviously, if we'll see what catches his attention the most. We'll see. All right. Well, I think I'm going to transition to closing questions here. I always end the interviews with the same 3 questions as well. And this first one is my absolute favorite. And we've done a lot of this so far in this episode. So feel free to lean back and just be like, I've done this. But do you have any last bits of wisdom, advice, or homework for the listeners?
Yes. If you want to play with kids, which I think is probably why you're listening to this, if you want to bring kids to your game table, don't be intimidated by it. Just try it and have fun. Kids are a very forgiving audience. They will have fun. They will not care if you mess it up or do it weird. Just just try it and have fun with it.
Ah.
It doesn't need to be complicated.
You know what's funny is, so I have two nephews who are now 8 and 9. And so they're
Ooh,
like,
good ages.
yeah, they're quite a bit older than my son at 4. But I've always said, one of these days I got to get all my nieces, my niece and my nephews over and just sit them down. Be like, we're going to try something interesting here. And it's never that I've been intimidated by it, like, which I can totally understand why some people would be. It's more just like, I need to meet them where their interests are. So it's going to be one of those things where it's like, okay, what can I throw on the table and be like, all of you will be interested in this thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, feel free to like borrow from whatever they're into. Like, I don't know what 8-year-olds are into, but like I know 5-year-olds are really into like My Little Pony and Bluey and Frozen. And
Oh,
it's like, okay, bring that stuff to the table. That's
yeah.
fine. Those
Bluey's
people
great.
can be characters in your game. Why
Yeah,
not?
absolutely. Yeah, actually, for my wife's brother and his wife, at one point I think it was right before COVID, but we did it a little into COVID as well. They were like, we'll try this. Sure. And my brother-in-law's wife was like, no, not for me. That's not my style. And I was like, what do you like? And she was like, I like Disney movies. I'm not going to like D&D. And I was like, oh, challenge accepted. And we ended up running a like 2-year long Disney campaign where she played Snow White. I just made her Snow White. I gave her a super simplified character sheet, which on one, like, it was 3 columns. It was like, if we're in combat, these are your things. And it wasn't even like the full spell list for her druid, because we figured sings to
Oh,
animals,
yeah.
right? You know what I mean?
Totally a druid.
Yeah.
Yes.
So it was like, here's your options in battle. In the middle, it was like, here's your options during exploration. And on the right, it was like, if you want to use these, you can. And it was like a bunch of utility randomness or whatever. And everyone else got
Nice.
full on character sheets. And we played like Disney characters. We did like a Kingdom Hearts style. Oh, a portal opened. Where does this go? Oh, Tarzan. Where does this portal go? Oh, I think we
Okay,
did
that
one.
sounds amazing. I would love to play that game.
Yeah, I'll send you my notes if you want. It was really fun. We did one where I
That's so cool.
melded Little Mermaid, Atlantis, and then Star Wars, because it was just bought by Disney when we were playing it. And my brother-in-law was a huge Star Wars fan, and I was like, I'm just gonna throw in like the
Yeah.
Gungans. And he was
Yes.
like, what is happening right now? I was like, well, technically Disney, so we can do it.
I mean, it's all underwater, so
Yeah.
like, yeah, it
Yeah.
makes
And
sense.
kids and I could easily rehash that for kids. That might be
Yeah.
the angle. Anyway, sorry, we got thrown off on question number 1. But don't be intimidated to play with kids.
And steal from Disney.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. Absolute gold mine of ideas. You could just full on lift whole plots and just reflavor it. It's fine. So, question number 2, as we close out here, is: are there any games you're excited to play? Maybe, as a player, I know you're doing actual plays with story crafters. Is that right?
Mm-hmm.
Are there any games you're excited to play or ideas you want to try out in a game?
I would just like to be a player in a game again. That would be
Yeah,
lovely.
I hear you. Right, the forever GM curse of just let me sit at a table.
Yeah,
Yeah.
no, I honestly, I think the next thing I really want to do, which I don't know why, but I get really nervous about this, is I want to join a game like at a con or something, like go to
Mm,
a gaming con and like actually go in the gaming room and sit at a table and join like a stranger's game. That's really what I want to do.
yeah, yeah. Well, and a lot of those have open door policy kind of things, right? Where you're sitting down, you might say like, "That game seems interesting, gonna try it," and then you sit down, and you go like, "Nah, I'm not feeling it." Like nobody's gonna be
Yeah.
like, "How dare you walk away, this person we've never met before?" Like, "Oh my good," like.
I know
So
people are always so nice and welcoming and are like, come play with us. And I'm like, oh no, no
yeah.
thanks. And next time I'm just gonna do it. I'm gonna do it so bad.
It's funny. There was a local con, and it was actually super rare that like all of the members of my streaming group, the DMs After Dark, went to this con, and we were all doing our own things and like occasionally like meeting back up and then going and doing things and then meeting back up. And at one point we just sat down and we were like, you guys just want to play a game? And like, it was the people we play with all the time, just sitting down and playing a game in person. And we were like, look at us going to a con and not playing games with strangers, just sitting down and playing games with us like it always is. Like, why did we do this?
What are we doing?
But
Yeah.
at the same time, we had people walking by going, what's going on over here? And we were
Yeah,
like,
that's
come sit down
cool.
if you want. Anyway,
Yeah, that's really cool.
I love that idea. That's actually, and that's the first time I've heard somebody say that. We get a lot of, I have this idea, but yeah, the taking a chance at sitting at a con table. It's good.
Mm-hmm.
It's a good goal.
Yeah, I'm gonna try to be brave and do it next time I go to a con.
All right, and our final closing question is: go ahead and pitch whatever you'd like, and tell people where they can find you on the internet.
Okay, well, definitely the most active place I am is Instagram. So I'm Game Master Mom on pretty much all social platforms: Facebook, TikTok, Instagram, Blue Sky, Threads, all the things.
All the
But
things.
if you actually want to talk to me in a reasonable amount of time, I'm on Instagram the most. So, like, I actually respond to my messages and stuff there. So, if you want to actually talk to me, Instagram, Game Master Mom, is a great place. If you're interested in more about my project or you want to buy any of my resources, you can find those on my website. It's gamemastermom.com, all one word, pretty simple. And most importantly, now the most timely thing is the Kickstarter for my first book that we've been talking about, Tales of Aetheria, An Unexpected Quest. You can find it on Kickstarter. The links to my Kickstarter are all over my socials and my website, so they're not hard to find. But you could also probably just Google it, Kickstarter Tales of Aetheria, and it would probably pop right up. And that runs May 1st through May 31st.
Yep, and I will link it in the description of this podcast. I will
Perfect.
fast track this to come out in May, so that way people can get on it as they hear this, if they haven't already, and all of your other links, so that way people can find you. Well, Nicole, thank you so much for coming on.
Yeah, thank you so much. This was fun. This was really fun.
Yeah, I always love sitting down and talking games with people, but it inevitably always ends up going places I never expect, and it's always a learning opportunity. And I love meeting new people. So best of luck with your Kickstarter, and hopefully we can chat more soon. And I'll update you about my adventures in running games for kids if you're at all interested.
I'm definitely interested. I want to see how it goes with your son and how it goes with the ones you're developing.
Yeah. Yes, I need to. I need to brush off that kids game design I was working on. It's kind of sat on the shelf for a few months now. Maybe I should revisit with fresh eyes.
Mm-hmm. It's time to look at it again.
All right. Well, thank you so much, and have best of luck with your project.
Thank you.
And thank you so much for listening to another episode of Perspective Checks. As always, if you're looking for me, you can find me on all the socials at Rene Plays Games, or email me directly at reneplaysgamespod@gmail.com. Leave a rating and review if you feel very kind, and if you feel insanely generous, I have a coffee page where you can throw me a few bucks, either one time or recurring, to help cover the cost of podcast hosting and all that shenanigans. Thank you for being patient. I know I've been away a few weeks, so it means a lot, and I hope that you're doing well and playing great games. Now go check out Tales of Aetheria, and remember that childlike wonder